Hi everybody. Have you ever seen one of these? This is from my grandmother, so it's quite old. You turn that knob and these spokes appear around the wheel, and you, as I'm showing you there with my finger, do a figure eight of different threads, normally raffia, and then you retract those spokes and you end up with a nice daisy called a daisy wheel. So let's have a go. We have these ones, these old brass ones, the newer equivalent. There's also plastic varieties that we'll just have a look at later. But what I'm trying to show you is that you just hold it to start with. I'm looking for one that actually works the best. Is it the new one or is it Grandma's old favourite? But either way, what you do is hold it in the centre to start, and imagine you're going around a clock. So from 12 you go down to 6, up to 1, down to 5, etc. As you're following it around, you're doing the opposite side like that. And you're making a little loop around those spokes. So when you have done that, you cut a bit of a tail on it, and you then thread it with a needle, and then you try to go around each of those petals, anchor them in fact. So I did a bit of an experiment here, and because I couldn't quite remember, we did this as children. So I tried to do a little stitch over each of the petals. But later I decide using that thread to go under 2 of those little petals and then back over 1. And as I go through, I'll go over to 2 again. And that's the way I figured out was going to work best. So once you're all the way around, you can do a couple of stitches to end off. But remember the knob on the back. That retracts those stems that have come out of that circular object. And that's what we've been wrapping around. And now if you twist that knob, you can retract those stems. Pull those little petals off and separate your flower from the wheel. So I most remember making these, and we would sometimes have 2 colours, make it quite fancy. Then we would plait a long rope with the 3 strands, maybe using 2 of one colour and 1 of another of this raffia, and we would thread it through the back, and we would make these lovely little sandals. It would strap around one of your toes, leave a nice daisy on the top of your foot, crisscross up towards your knees, and tie off. They were really very 60s or 70s, I think. Alright, so at the moment I am doing another one here, and I'm just doing I'm trying it with just a single stitch back on itself, like a little back stitch under each petal. But I'm sure there's plenty of ways that you could anchor it off. Really, they are such a lovely little flower. Now I'm sure you can make your own, maybe out of a plastic ice cream lid or something. But I have these, so I'm going to try it. This time, I'm thinking let's try something different. Yes, I've done it in raffia. Here, I'm going to use this. It's a plastic one. It has raised nodules that you can wrap around. And so I went around it in the same fashion. This is a sari silk scrap. And at the end, I sort of had some nice turquoise colour there, and I thought, I'm probably going to try and use that. So I've decided to just pop a pin in it and grab some other thread. Now, I found some turquoise threads because I thought, that'd be nice. And then I found this one, and it is lovely and rich and goes so beautifully with this. So I'm going to do the same thing where I am going to go, put a knot in it, come up from the bottom. It's a totally different thread this time. And I'll go, over one, under two, back, back, and then over that one before. And that it's like doing a back stitch all the way around it. And it is anchoring it. You can find oodles of ways, I'm sure, to anchor it. But I was experimenting with the one I remembered, trying to figure out how it was. I'm sure there's more information out there. But I prefer to just have a go and see what comes to me rather than finding the proper way or the recorded way of doing something. I think this leads to more creativity. You'll think of ways to get around problems rather than just following the notes. At any rate, once I have done all of that stitching, I think, I'm loving that turquoise on it. And this particular daisy wheel kind of, or flower loom is another word, it has two different sets of those nodules that are poking up. An outer, which you've already used, and an inner circle. So I'm going to use what's left of this lovely turquoise, and I'm going to do the same thing on top and see what happens. So it's all very experimental stuff for me. I mean, I don't remember doing this to make sandals out of, but I am thinking it's going to look quite interesting. So I'm not knowing how this is going to turn out. It is looking very messy, but I think messy can be really nice. So I'm going to use a nice gold, sort of a knitted kind of yarn. And it's glittery, and I think it would be pretty in here. Doing the same thing, I'll take a knot in the end and thread it through a needle and come up and just do the same again, where I'm trying to anchor those crisscrosses, where they dissect those little petals. And do a few stitches around each of them as I go around the circle, making sure they're all anchored nicely. And of course, when it is anchored nicely, I can pull it tight like I did there. And now I'll have a go at getting it off those little nodules, the bits that are sticking up that we're using to form our lovely daisy, or whatever it is. So I'm starting to pick them off, and then I realise, there's a big hole in the centre. I can probably just pop it off by pushing the other side. There we go. Bit of both doesn't hurt. We've eased it off, and now I'm looking at it and thinking, wow, and messy, yes, but quite interesting. So I'm just fiddling with some of the petals there, and the inner turquoise, jade coloured ones. And I'm thinking, what else? So I've just left a string on that gold yarn that I was using, just to sort of think about it later, what I might want to do. And I go on, just making a few more, see where it leads me, perfecting my technique, working out different ways. And as the whole idea is about experimentation, let's try this. I picked this one up at the op shop the other day, the charity shop. Single balls of wool are a great thing to look for there. And they're just interesting, very interesting textures. This one, beautiful colours, but it's very fluffy. Well, what have we got? We've got something. It's a bit of a blob at the moment, but I'm sure it could be something. And so let's have a look at our collection. I think the more I do, the more I think of that I could do. I think it's a very exciting prospect. This time I'm going to use, what is it? A sort of a nylon ribbon kind of yarn. It's gold and black and woven, and I just really liked the look of it and I wanted to see what it would do. So I'm going to do the same thing like I did with that lovely orange one, but I'm going to do it all in one colour this time. So I do the outer layer first, and then I come in and do the centre flower around those spokes that are closer into the centre. So, and then when I'm finished, I'll cut it, and I'll just do a little bit of stitching, maybe around 2 at once this time, through to the back, you know, and then up and then back on myself. So I'm anchoring each single petal. It's the same process, and by this time I've sort of, you know, gotten the ideas together of how it works best to do. So I'm speeding up. I'm getting better. I'm thinking of more things as I go. And as I finish this one, I can start to peel it off those prongs that it goes around, the nodules. Or, as I've now discovered, you can just push it through from behind. But as long as it comes off, you can choose what way you want to do it. Once it's out, just do a couple of stitches on top of each other, on the behind of it, on the back of it, and that is enough to knot it so it won't come undone. Now, as I still don't know what I want to do with these things, I'm just going to leave those long tails on them. But don't they look pretty together? We've got a lovely colour combination there. I've picked a few more that I want to try and experiment with. I've got that gold thread, gold and glittery, and I went round twice on that around the daisy wheel because it was finer. I thought I could go twice around, and I used a turquoise thread to go around it. Here I have some more raffia. How old was that? Really, really old. I got that from an op shop. So the copper raffia and this here was made from this lovely bobbly yarn. I quite liked the look of that. Let's have a closer peek now. We've got a variety of things, but see how they are all matching in beautifully together. So I think this can go further. But what can we do with these things? Well, here we go. This one here, we finished here. So what we could do is you could just use a single one. You could make a brooch, a magnet, a badge. If you had a brooch, you could just do a few stitches around the bar of the brooch behind. You can buy those things. Yeah, but I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. But, you know, the first step would be to end off. If you didn't want that gold thread, you just do that gold yarn. Because what has caught my eye is this lovely yellow, shiny, silky thread. I'm going to get that one out next. Have a look at it. It really does collect the shine. It's a lighter colour and brighter colour than the orange background, and certainly the turquoise. So I load it up. 3 strands of it will be enough. Pick a length of it, cut it. See, I can even pop that little button on. That would be lovely in the centre. So I have this big needle out that I've been using. My first thing would be to check whether it can go through that button holes, because they are quite small. Well, it did go through, but I thought a smaller needle would go through all those layers of material easier. I grab 3 strands, I load a finer needle, tie a knot on the end, and come up through the center of the back of the flower. And now I can concentrate on getting this button. It's a lovely pearly old button. Another thing I've collected from the op shop. They certainly do add character though. And so you come up from underneath. Those of you that haven't sewn a button on, simple. Up from underneath, down, either at diagonal, like you're doing a little cross, or 2 bars. So I'm going to do the cross. And it can be tricky, pulling that needle up and trying to find that hole. Eventually you'll get it. And then back through that cross. Good idea, especially if you were doing clothes or something, to do it multiple times. And I will probably do it again, I think. But like I say, not that easy to find that hole. But eventually it happens. Now when it has, and you've done your cross and you're happy with that, I had more on this thread, and I thought, look at those lovely turquoise loops. Wouldn't it be lovely to be able to manipulate where I want them? So like spokes on the wheel again, I'm coming up underneath the button where you can't see where I've come up, and I'm just going out onto a petal, and at the same time sometimes I'm looking where I might want that turquoise to be. So, and sometimes I come up through that turquoise yarn, and I go back down into the center again. And that's what I'm going to do, work my way around this flower. And sometimes I'm manipulating or those loops, sometimes I want them smaller, sometimes I want them pushed around further, and this is a great way to do it. But you've got to be careful not to wrap your thread around those petals and then it pulls them up. But when it does, I think, well, aren't you interesting? You could be a 3-dimensional flower very easily. We could have planned that, doing that so that it drew up some of those petals. But, yeah, at the moment, although those are ideas for the future, I'm just doing a relatively flat flower. But I'm having fun with it. I'm thinking, what else could I possibly do? How far can I take this? What else would be nice? As I'm working my way around. So I'm happy. I think it looks very interesting. When I'm done, I go through to the back, a couple of stitches, as I said, on top of each other, and then I'm going to trim it. And there we are. That's what we've done with that one. But it's got my head humming with different ideas. Whilst I'm fiddling with this one and really enjoying it, I'm pulling some of them out. I'm thinking one of them was too long, so I actually wrapped it around the button, but look at it. Isn't it pretty? And I'm excited. I'm thinking different things, thinking what could I make out of this? Well, I think plenty. I think given how nice that one turned out from just a simple bit of raggy stuff, I'm thinking even this ugly duckling, that furry orange one that I've just added into the mix there, I think even it I can make look beautiful. And that's going to be a bit of a challenge because it is just one furry lump at the moment. But there are no rejects here. We're just going to make it work. So I've really enjoyed doing this. I think it's a worthwhile experiment. Look at that. That's a chrysanthemum, I think, that one that we're just narrowing in on. There's a daisy. All kinds of flowers. And just has that beautiful rustic kind of quality to it. And wasn't it interesting? All those different things that we use. Sari, silk, raffia, wool, ribbon, all different things. So whilst we're having a look here, I'm just thinking, why don't we do some more? So if you would like to join me next time, we're going to take every one of these flowers and we're going to add a little something to them and see if we can really make them sing. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, don't forget to press like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.